Okay. So our topic for today is all about internal assessment. We have already discussed the external assessment in the past few weeks before ng exam natin. So external assessment was environmental scanning for the external environment of the organization. And right now, parang same siya ng external assessment, iba nga lang yung ini-scan natin, which is yung external is for sa labas ng environment, which are the opportunities and threats which we don't have control to or control of. So wala tayong control doon sa opportunities and threats, but we do have some remedial action to minimize or to grab the opportunities once it arises. And now we have to talk about the internal assessment or the internal environment of the organization. In this case, we already have a control about it because it talks about the internal weaknesses and strengths. So, are you familiar with the SWOT analysis? Because I think we have already discussed about it on our first session. So it is very related to the internal assessment. Okay. Internal assessment is a tool used to determine the customer analysis, selling product or services, product and service planning, pricing, distribution, marketing research, opportunity analysis. So all of these will be discussed on the next part of our discussion. It will be discussed in detail, but right now, wrap up lang muna to siya. Parang ano lang to siya, yung overview. So, ayun. The idea of internal assessment is that we are going to look for the different strengths and weaknesses of each department inside the organization, just like in the production department, marketing department. Titingnan po natin in the marketing department if our products are being sold that meets our expectations. Like for example, if we are expecting 500,000 of sales, kung nasusunod ba siya? O kung yung pricing ba natin is higher than competitors, tapos titingnan natin kung what causes the higher prices as compared to the competitors. So titingnan din natin kung yung employees ba natin ay highly motivated or not. So everything that talks about the internal environment, dito natin mapapag-aralan sa internal assessment. So ayan. This is conducted via communication, checklists, surveys, interviews, and obtaining data. Like for example, if yung concern natin is yung sa employees natin, if they are satisfied with their job, meron tayong ibibigay na survey kung nabibigay ba ng company yung kanilang ini-expect na benefit. Kung nafe-feel ba nila na motivated sila to work every day. Kung nafe-feel ba nila na ina-appreciate ng company yung efforts na binibigay nila. It could also be through interviews or it could also be through checklists. So depende na lang sa company kung what type of medium of communication yung gagamitin nila. It could be checklist, surveys, interview sila one by one, or communication like pwede ring conference call or through a meeting, etc. Managers and employees perform better when they understand how their work affects other areas and activities of the firm. Okay, syempre, kung titingnan lang natin, for example, di ba ang isang organization may iba't ibang department? Like for example, meron tayong HR department, yung nagko-control or nag-oversee sa mga empleyado. Yung meaning pala ng HR is yung human resources. Everything that talks about employee relations, labor, etc. sa HR po yan. And then we also have the marketing department. It talks about they do something in relation to products, advertisements, product, ano matawag nun? Pinapakilala sa market. Anong tawag nun? Aside from advertisement, basta ini-integrate na nila dun sa market. Pinapakilala nila yung products at saka yung monitoring of performance of their product if it is selling or not. Syempre, yung marketing department yung naka-assign doon. Next one is sa production department naman, sila po yung nagde-decide as to how many inventories are they going to produce or what are the needed materials, how many labors, direct labors do they need in producing a certain product, or how many hours it takes to produce a certain amount of units. So yun po yung trabaho ng production department. Yung iba naman pong department, like for example, yung finance department, sila naman po yung nag-oversee ng mga expenditures, yung recording of journals, yung presentation of FS, etc. So may kanya-kanya po silang mga role or may kanya-kanya po silang assignment. Kung ang isang department dyan ay hindi maintindihan kung ano ba ang epekto ng kanilang ginagawa sa ibang department, syempre, wala silang ganang magtrabaho. So, katulad nito, sabi sa ating statement, managers and employees perform better when they understand how their work affects other areas and activities of the firm. Like for example, kung yung production department, hindi niya alam na yung ipinoproduce niya ay kailangang magiging equal to the expected sales ng ating marketing. Kung hindi nila alam na yung marketing nag-expect ng ganitong 500,000 na sales, pero yung production department, di nila alam na ito pala yung in-expect ng marketing, then magpo-produce lang sila ng 20,000 na units. So, in return, hindi talaga mamimit yung 500,000 na sales kasi maliit lang yung produce nila. When in fact, kung alam nila, ito pala yung target ng marketing department, 500,000 pala. So, we should produce more than 500,000 or exactly 500,000. So, ayun. So, dyan makikita natin na pag alam nila na maapektuhan yung ibang department, mas magpa-perform sila to meet the goal of their department. Kasi alam nila na hindi lang sila yung maapektuhan nun. Okay? So, next one is performing an internal audit. Thus, is an excellent method in improving the process of communication in the organization. By the way, yung maingay po dito is hindi po tao. It's a dog actually. Yung aso medyo inuubo siya. But I hope it's not COVID. So, okay. Yun lang. So, next one is performing an external audit. Thus, is an, kailangan magkakaroon po tayo ng audit para makita po natin if all the assets and resources of the company are being spent wisely. Baka yung ating finance department, instead na para sa pagre-record ng mga tawag nito, ng mga transactions, yung paggamit ng bond paper, ginagamit na pala para sa bahay. Dinadala na pala sa bahay. So that's why it is very important to make or to do the internal audit. Also, baka yung nasa production department na employees are not doing their job. Baka natutulog lang sila at this time, at saka gigising lang pag nakikita nila na yung supervisor nila is nandyan. So it is a must to do the internal audit in each department. Okay. So, okay, that was just an introduction of our topic. We have here the objectives. First one is to realize the importance of internal audit. Second, understand the resource-based view approach to competitive advantage. Third, learn to integrate strategy and culture in strategic management. Fourth, identify the functions of management. Okay. Let's start with internal audit. The process of performing an internal audit closely parallels to the process of performing an external audit. Yun nga yung sinabi ko kanina. Parang pare-parehas lang siya. Yung pagkakaiba nga lang nila is yung ini-scan natin na environment is sa internal ng organization. Yung external assessment naman or external audit, yung sa labas ng organization. Okay. Representative managers and employees from throughout the firm need to be involved in determining a firm's strengths and weaknesses. Okay, sabi ko nga kanina na each department has a say in determining the strengths and weaknesses. Kung ano ba yung malakas dito sa marketing, magagaling ba yung mga employees nila doon, yung mga staff nila doon or not, or kung sa production mabilis ba silang yung mga employees ba nila doon, yung mga workers ba nila mabilis gumawa ng product or not, or tatamad-tamad. So lahat sila may say sa pagde-determine kung ano ba ang strength at weaknesses ng each department. Okay. The internal audit requires gathering and assimilating information about the firm's management, marketing, finance or accounting, production, operations, research and development, and management information systems operations. Yun nga yung na-mention ko kanina na, yeah, each department has a say in the internal audit. The main focus in internal audit is to assess the strengths and weaknesses of the company in every department. Okay. So, purpose of internal audit. Internal strengths or weaknesses coupled with external opportunities and threats and clear vision, mission statements will provide the basis for establishing the company's objectives and strategies. Of course. So, kung ma-determine natin na, like for example, sa production, tatamad-tamad yung mga employees natin, yung mga workers natin. So, dahil nga may weaknesses tayo doon, maybe kulang sila ng incentive para ganahan magtrabaho. So, bibigyan natin sila ng incentive. If hindi pa rin sila magtrabaho ng maayos, then may mga sanctions na tayo doon. Or it could also be, fire them if wala talaga silang ginagawa. So, that's how it is. Okay. Yan po yung tinatawag na mga strategies. Ano bang dapat gawin in case ganito yung makita natin. Instead, makakita tayo ng strengths or makakita tayo ng weaknesses. Ang isa naman dyan is kung sa marketing naman natin ay magagaling sila. So kahit hindi gaanong maganda yung product natin, tapos inassign natin sa marketing, syempre, it's our strength na mabebenta siya sa market kahit hindi siya ganun kagaling, hindi siya ganun ka high quality, as long as yung marketing department natin is magaling magbenta. So, that's one of our strengths. Next, objectives and strategies are established with intention of capitalizing upon internal strengths and overcoming the company's weaknesses. Yes, yan nga yung sinabi ko kanina, overcoming the company's weaknesses. Kung medyo hindi pa marunong magtrabaho yung nasa finance department, hindi pa masyadong trained when it comes to recording properly of financial information. So, ang gagawin ng company, mag-provide sila ng training. So, that's how they overcome yung isang weakness. Yung weakness na hindi sila magaling mag-record. So, ang gagawin, magti-training. Siyempre, madidevelop na yung skills. So, medyo mababawasan na yung weakness na yon. Whereas sa internal strengths naman, yung sinabi ko na ulit kanina about sa marketing, kahit pangit na product, magaling silang magbenta, so it's fine. So, ipapa-endorse lang nila dun sa marketing at mabibenta na yun. But of course, in the long run, kailangan talaga magaling yung product natin so it will not harm our reputation as an organization. Okay. Next one is the strategies to be designed to improve on a firm's weakness and turn it into strengths. Okay. Ano bang gagawin natin na yung weakness natin ay magiging strength natin? Of course, before that, we should first know what are the weaknesses. Dapat i-accept muna natin na oo, may weaknesses tayo. Then from that acceptance, we can then do some steps or do some strategies para ma-minimize or even matransform yung weakness na yon into strength. So yung weakness natin was, yun nga, yung employees again, then dahil nga nag-training na sila at naging expert na sila sa field na yon, then syempre, it will turn eventually into our strength. Okay. Next one is the major advantage in conducting internal audits would provide the organization with competitive advantage. Okay. Syempre, because alam naman natin na may weakness tayo, then nakapag-training na sila, then naging strength na natin yung weakness na yon. Of course, it is because of internal audit. Kung hindi tayo nag-internal audit, hindi natin determine kung ano ba yung weakness natin, then hindi natin magiging strength yun. Then we will not have a competitive advantage. Okay, ano nga ba ang competitive advantage? So now, we're now going to move to this section, the competitive advantage. So before that, kindly take note of these 4. So ito po yung pinaka-importanting bagay kung bakit tayo merong internal audit. Iba po siya sa internal audit na ginagawa ng mga CIA, Chief Internal Auditors. Iba po yan. Ito po ay yung sa management, pero pwede rin namang gawin nila yun, but then not necessarily yun. Yung sa internal audit kasi is yung titingnan talaga nila kung yung assets nila or resources ay napupunta sa tamang paggamitan. Yun yung purpose nun. But then dito sa atin, dito sa strategic management, yung overall na strengths at weaknesses ina-identify. So, it's safe to say or it's safe to use yung term na internal assessment. Ina-assess natin yung strengths and weaknesses. So, now let's move to competitive advantage. Ano nga ba ang competitive advantage? According to our book, it is a condition that enables a company to operate in a more efficient manner than its competitors, resulting in higher profits. Okay. Like for example, sa cellphone industry. So, we have here brand X and brand Y. Yung brand X, every year sila nagpapalit ng model dahil alam nila na yung customers natin ay pabago-bago ng mga taste. Magiging more demanding sila. Like for example, dati-rati kontento lang sila sa 4 GB of RAM ng computer or ng cellphone. Pero ngayon, gusto na nila ng mas mabilis or mas malaking RAM, 16 GB of RAM, mas better. Itong isang brand naman, yung brand Y, yung company Y, hindi sila every year nag-innovate. Yung parang, okay lang yan kahit 4 GB of RAM dahil maganda naman yung quality ng product natin. So, we don't need to innovate. So, in that case, sino ba yung mayroong competitive advantage? Siyempre, si Brand X. Kasi, si Brand X, mas marami silang customers na ma-attract because nagbabago-bago nga yung gusto ng mga customers natin. Okay? So, next one is, it is also a value that the organization creates for its customers through its strengths. Okay. Like for example, sa iPhone na lang, iPhone versus Android. So nakikita natin na yung iPhone na yun, medyo mas nalilate sila sa mga technicalities compared sa mga Android at medyo mahal siya, di ba? But then, it's because of the durability ng not necessarily mas durable sa, yung ginagamit nilang material sa paggawa ng phones, at saka yung name mismo, the name itself, the name of Apple, yung nakatatak na sa mga tao, kaya tinatangkilik pa rin ito kahit mas mababa din yung mga tawag nito, specs as compared sa mga Android at a higher price pa naman. So, ayun. Kaya tinatangkilik pa rin siya because it's iPhone, it's Apple, di ba? That is the value that the organization creates and that is one of its strengths. Okay. Next one is, weaknesses can then be turned into strengths by first acknowledging that there are weaknesses. Yep, I have mentioned this kanina. So, sabi ko nga sa inyo, kung walang internal audit, hindi natin ma-assess na meron pala tayong weaknesses. Yung mayroon palang weaknesses ang ating companies. Siyempre, magagawa lang natin ito, may improve lang natin ang ating weaknesses if we acknowledge na may weakness tayo, then turn it into strength. Okay? Hence, it is important to determine the strengths and weaknesses for the organization to achieve competitive advantage, of course. So, na-explain ko na to kanina. So, let's now move to the functions of management. Actually, this topic has already been discussed in your senior high school years. I think it was during nung grade 11 kayo because it's part of organization and management na subject. But then we need to incorporate it with our discussion and we need to review that topic because I think medyo baka nakakalimutan nyo na to. Okay. So we have here the 5 functions of management: the planning, organizing, motivating, staffing, and controlling. If I'm not mistaken, meron tayo nitong code. Nakalimutan ko na nga. Meron tayong tinatawag na mnemonics dito. Nakalimutan ko na talaga siya. Pero meron yung mnemonics when I was teaching organizational management. But yeah, basically, these are all the functions of management. So, ito naman na side na to, sa kanan, these are the stage of strategic management kung saan yung planning nagagawa or importante. Saan ba siya nagiging mahalaga? Okay, like for example, yung planning, importante siya sa strategy formulation. Yung organizing naman, importante siya sa implementation. Yung motivating, implementation din. Yung staffing naman, sa implementation din. Controlling is sa evaluation. So, bakit nga ba sila importante sa ganyang stage? Okay. Masasagutan natin yan if we discuss what are those. Kung ano nga ba ang mga stages na to. Ano nga ba yung mga functions na to. Okay. So we only have 40 minutes before ma-close yung ano natin, yung tawag nito, yung Zoom natin because this is not a paid Zoom account. It's just a basic account. So in case na mag-stop, you can just join again the class. So, okay. So, first is planning. So, planning, dito po nagagawa yung pagpo-forecast natin para sa next period, next year. Ano ba yung gusto nating magawa sa susunod na year? Ilan ba yung sales na gusto nating ma-achieve? Or from the present trend, ano nga ba ang possible na maging impact nun the following year? So, dyan po sa planning natin yun makikita. Establishing objectives, yun nga yung sinabi ko, ano bang gusto natin ma-attain next year? Devising strategies, ano bang dapat natin gawin just in case merong mga balakid to obtain or to attain the objectives. So, developing policies, lahat ng mga policies ng company, it's part of planning, setting of goals, yeah, it's also part of our planning. Kaya siya mas importante dito sa strategy formulation. Kasi syempre sa strategy formulation, dapat alam muna natin yung gusto natin. Alam muna natin yung possible na mangyari next year before tayo makakapag-formulate ng strategy. Okay. Check ko lang yung time, baka mag-stop. Okay. So next one is organizing. So we have here the different activities under organizing. Organizational design. Oh, this meeting will end in 10 minutes. Upgrade now. Okay, just rejoin na lang the session if ever mag-close tayo. So, organizing. Dito po nakapaloob yung organizational design, yung gumagawa tayo ng organizational chart para makita kung sino ba yung nasa top, sino ba yung pinaka manager natin, at sino ba yung mga subordinates under his management, sino ba yung dapat reportan, sino ba yung responsible sa mga specific task. So, Yan po yung gagawin natin when we do the organizing. Span of control, sino ba yung mga managers na in charge sa mga taong ito, sa mga staff na ito. Like for example, sa finance, yung financial manager, sino ba yung mga taong kanyang pwedeng makontrol? Ito po yung mga staff accountant, ito po yung mga inventory personnel, yung purchasing personnel, etc. So, diyan po natin malalaman sa organizing. Unity of command, dapat isa lang po yung boss natin, hindi pa pwede na boss natin si financial manager, magre-report pa rin tayo dun sa production, hindi po pwede yun. Magkakaroon po ng conflict. So, coordination, of course, syempre from marketing to production, to finance department, dapat magkaroon din tayo ng coordination para ma-attain natin yung common goal and objectives. Job design, job analysis, etc. So it's part of organizing. Kaya po siya part ng strategy implementation. Dahil yung implementation nga yung sinabi ko dati, na yan po yung isinasagawa na, yung naiisip nating, yung na-formulate nating strategy during the planning stage. So sa organizing, ini-implement na natin ito or iti-take na natin into action. Okay? So next one is motivating. Sa motivating, dito po na-practice or na-apply yung leadership, communication, work groups, job enrichment, job satisfaction, needs fulfillment, yeah. Dito po sa stage na to or sa function na to, nagagawa ang ating pagbo-motivate sa mga employees, natatanong natin kung satisfied ba sila sa kanilang trabaho or not, or fulfilled ba sila sa kanilang mga personal goals through this job or not, or kung tama ba yung mga leaders na na-assign, yung mga managers na na-assign dyan. So it's part of motivating. So yeah, it's also part of implementation because it is a way of taking action to make the formulated strategy into reality. So ayun. Next one is staffing. Staffing, dito naman po natin matitake into action yung pagpapasweldo, pag-a-administer ng ating employees, sa pag-hiring, sa pag-firing, training, management development, safety of the employees, etc., labor relations, career development, discipline procedures. Diyan po yan sa staffing. So I think it's very familiar na because it has already been discussed during your senior high school years. So basically, it is self-explanatory naman dito sa staffing. I don't need to explain much of this. Next one is controlling. Okay. Kung napapansin natin, itong tatlong ito is part of implementation, yung organizing, motivating, at saka staffing. So last one is controlling. Quality control, financial control. Okay, sa quality control, titingnan natin sa production department kung yung mga inventories ba na nagagawa nila is in accordance with the quality specifications ng ating company. If not, then titingnan natin sino ba yung may sala sa pagkakaroon ng poor quality. Maybe yung nag-purchase, hindi magandang quality ng materials yung kanyang na-purchase, kaya nag-result siya sa low quality of finished products. So, ayun. Inventory control, expense control. Kung sobra-sobra na ba yung nagagastos natin sa isang buwan, titingnan natin sa finance department, ano ba yung gastusan natin ng ganito karami. So, baka nag-acquire tayo ng maraming PPE. PPE means property, plant, and equipment, hindi personal protective equipment. Property, plant, and equipment. Like for example, yung land, like for example, yung buildings, pumili tayo, or furniture and fixtures, marami tayong binili kasi meron tayong bagong branch, etc. So, titingnan natin if tama lang ba na ganito yung maging expense natin for this year or sobra ba to sa in-expect natin. Diyan natin makikita sa process or sa function ng controlling. Kaya nga tinatawag siya na part ng strategy evaluation. Kasi ini-evaluate natin kung tama ba yung mga nagawa natin, na-implement natin. So, okay. Okay. So, for now, hanggang dyan muna yung topic natin, yung discussion natin, because masyadong marami na if we start with discussing the different departments. So, expound na lang natin yung different departments at saka yung mga strengths and weaknesses niya in each department on the next discussion na. So I'm gonna save the recording and then I'm gonna ask you some personal questions